Happy Sunday, everybody. Hopefully you've got lots of questions loaded up for us over your Sunday dinner. I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast and Self-Reliance Festival. I got my shirt on today, thanks to Bobby Spags, reminding me I probably should represent the festival tonight. We've got Spags from Midwest Preparedness Project on. Say hi.
What's going on, everybody?
And then I got Toolman Tim Cook, who's coming down to see us soon. We were just doing a little catching up. Toolman Tim, how's it going?
Hey, good to be here. Been a little while since I've been on a live. I'm enjoying it. So
yeah, Toolman Tim went on hiatus.
I sure did, and it's I took my own advice, but we can talk about it in a little bit if you want.
Sounds good. Okay, so I understand because I have had my head in a hole today, trying to figure out how to get live on Nostr. And we are streaming live to Nostr right now, in theory.
Nice.
And if we're not, I'm a lying liar. But
liar.
You know who helped me get it done, Tim?
Brian Alexovich.
And I gave him a zap. I was like, man, he's been answering my questions on and off all day today. So I figured we should practice what we preach and put our money where our mouth is and all of that, and actually try to use a decentralized technology system for this. So you can see us on YouTube, on all of it. But all I saw was a headline saying something about something Trump, something fire, shots fired. So what's going on with that, guys?
Oh boy, as a neutral third party from the apartment above a meth house, coming from Canada, just kidding. If I could move to the U.S. in a heartbeat, we would. But yeah, I'm telling you, I don't know. It's crazy. There was firearms involved. It's still one of those fluid situations. It'll be interesting to find out everything that happened, depending on who you hear. Either somebody shot at Trump and then the Secret Service shot back and they took off, or the Secret Service shot first, they took off. We do know the person's in custody. Going to be interesting to find out which side of the house they fall on, if you know what I mean. And holy cow, what an insane election season this has been.
Okay, so is he going to make it to the election alive?
Yes.
I mean, as alive as Nancy Pelosi is, I suppose.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Boy.
Look, guys, I'm going to tell you this right now. This has probably actually happened dozens of times during your lifetime. We just live in a 24/7 news cycle now where everything's been done and they have to top it. When I worked for the House of Representatives, that was during mostly the Obama administration. And I know for a fact there were multiple attempts on his life all the time. They just didn't talk about it. With Trump, it's a different story because he's a different kind of guy, a different kind of candidate, a different type of president, no matter what your opinion of him is. And so it makes for good TV. That's the only reason you're hearing about it.
Ain't that the truth? I what, me and my girls just talked about this the other day, about how, as a late model Gen Xer in the 90s, it wasn't a thing. Like, I mean, did the 24-hour news cycle exist? Kind of, but it wasn't to this like hyper steroidal kind of level. And at this point now, everything, and I don't want to, begrudge the youngins, but everything to them seems like it's the first time it's ever happened because it's pushed at them so hard, whether it be weather, whether it be anything else, right? I'm just, oh man, it feels like it's the scariest thing you've ever seen because it's pushed on you to be the scariest thing you've ever seen.
It's kind of why they use the word amazing and absolutely all the time. Everything when they take a picture of their food is absolutely amazing. And I'm like, you don't even know what those words mean.
This is literally the most important election of your lifetime.
Correct.
Spags.
Oh, the word literally. Yeah. Or
I seen the clown. Anybody else see the clowns go? They just went through here.
Yeah.
So.
My favorite one over the last 10 years, and it's getting worse, is everyone, in order to establish their dominance in a conversation or their legitimately starts out, well, as a former military guy, or, well, as a teacher, or, well, as a Gen Xer. And it's like, I don't care if you're any of those things. That doesn't make you an expert, really. I mean, it's kind of a dime a dozen for 99% of those categories. Now, if someone jumps on and says, well, as a former astronaut who did 3 trips around the Earth, then I might care. But if it's like, well, as a former, beat cop in Hoboken, New Jersey, I'm going to say, so.
Okay, so I have to tell you this. It was one of my favorite memories of my stepfather was hearing him on the phone with the manufacturer of a microwave because he wanted to fix a part that was broken rather than replace it because he was very environmentally conscious, right? And the representative, when he said, well, why can't I have that part to fix it? The representative said, because you're not a rocket scientist. He was like, actually, I am. So they wouldn't let a rocket scientist fix a microwave. Just saying.
Oh boy.
Pack Rat says the most asinine thing I've heard about this MSM stating there doesn't have to be a motive. There's always a motive. Why would you direct away from that? Yeah. Don't know.
Translation: in 3 days, the manifesto will be released and it won't be right-leaning stuff. That's all that means.
Will there be a manifesto? Because, man, I thought for sure the last dude would have had something. And he was either squeaky clean or they did a Las Vegas job on him. I don't know which one it was. So
depends. Yeah, that one depends who you ask. But I'm fairly certain that that cat was some MK Ultra level stuff going on there.
Whew. It's always anyway. Youngin, like, oh, we had to open with this, didn't we? But just like the 20-year-olds, just that frontal lobe hasn't quite developed yet. And
what's funny is we opened with it, and how many of us actually follow the news cycle and really make decisions based on it on the stream? Raise your hand. Like, how many of us have thrown our lives into helping people learn how to opt out of that and build something they love? You can put that back up.
How dare you?
I tried to highlight you, not remove you. There you go.
You have stolen my dreams.
How dare you?
How dare you? Yeah. So here we are. Tell me about Midwest Preparedness Project. Like, I heard it was great, but I want to hear Spags tell me it was great.
Oh man, it was more than great. We had over 325 people, which is our highest ever for a fall event. Spring for us is generally the busier of the two shows every year. Last fall we had 287. This fall we had 325. We had some cool stuff. We had some really neat folks. A big hat tip to Tag out here. About 2/3 of the people we had come out this time were people that, through his his gravity, have come to Midwest and agreed to actually come out and do stuff. So it was really cool. We had butcher stuff. We had Billy and Darren do a chicken demonstration where they actually did the strong bond method and used a chicken cone and did all that. And oh man, it was just magical. We had people showing up Tuesday at the gate like we did the last time you were there, Nicole, when it was just started Tuesday and it just started railroading, and it was awesome. A lot of good friendships were forged, and there are some preliminary plans for next fall, which will probably be the coolest thing almost anyone's ever seen at one of these kind of festivals. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Oh, come on. You can't just throw that out there and not say what it is, can you?
Well, I don't like to tease too much until I at least have a yes, but let's just say it involves 3 big names, 1 large animal, an open fire, and special permits through the Army Corps of Engineers, and I'll just leave it there.
I think I could start guessing what that is.
Did you have a touch of winter this year like last?
No, it was, in fact, for the first time, my buddy and I decided to bring my smelting kit out there. So we had our propane furnace out there. We had a bunch of scrap copper, and all the kids were sitting there watching. And him and I were sitting there basically burning copper and turning them into little coins. And we were flipping them out to the kids so they could have them for Bartertown. Well, it was nice. It was like 80 degrees. There was a nice little breeze. It was lovely fall morning. And the minute we set that stupid thing up, bam, 100 damn degrees, and we're burning at 2,200 degrees, 2,300 degrees, right there on the gravel. And it got to the point where I'm just like sweats, and I'm in a full leather apron, a face shield, and it was just pouring right down the face where my buddy and I had to take a knee a few times and get some water and Gatorade. So it was not cool at all. It was actually pretty dang warm. Damn cow farts.
Yeah, well, hopefully, at least there's showers at your site.
Yes, yeah, having a nice shower house works really well.
Yeah. Okay, so Tim, you've disappeared off the live stream world. What's been going on? Why'd you do that?
Nothing. I've just been, chilling, doing. We have, oh my God. So I've spent my last 5 years. This February it'll be 5 years since I came out of the closet as a content creator and decided that it was something I needed to do. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I have always done, I've always shared with everyone is, when you're building business, whatever you're doing, do the things that make you money. Do the things that bring back the return for you. And of course, in those 5 years, I have gone from a tiny little handyman business to a fairly good sized handyman business to a property management business to selling a handyman business to launching what is now 3 daycares and getting ready to expand the next daycare by another 100 kids, which includes renovations to the upstairs. So all that being said, number one, obviously that is our biggest moneymaker by a mile. And I couldn't stand by and watch Becky do everything herself. So I had to take an active role in the business. So that's 2 days a week. And I'm only going to do 5 days a week work period. So something had to give. So 2 days a week to the daycare. And I was like, well, 1 day a week of the content creation had to go, at least in the interim. So I was like, well, you look at the content creation and 95% of what comes through for income comes from review videos. So it's 2 review videos a week right now. I'm still in the Telegram group and I'm not going anywhere. And come fall, there'll be lives again. But in the interim, I mean, I have been working my baguettes off trying to get the renovations ready for upstairs because we have, just to put it into perspective, we got about 180 kids on a wait list right now. We are getting ready to do a renovation for 100 spots. So we are full before we even start. So it's something that has to be done. We're setting ourselves up for that independence and freedom down the road. And it is, man, I'm telling you, it's been one of the best times of our married lives. Not that things have ever been bad, but this is just so good right now.
That's really cool. And that trade-off is a thing that you just have to do, right? Like
100%.
My word of the year is hone. And I spent the first half of the year, first half of the year delivering on promises I'd made.
Yep.
And then the last 3 or 4 months dealing with something that's a priority over everything else. And therefore having to trade off. And now I'm like, okay, I get to set my future now. And I've turned off everything. So now it's like, when am I turning back on?
Hey, you know what? I've probably, it's not going to sound a lot, but I have numbers to prove that I've cut my screen time by about 25%. And it needed to be. We've started in the house here. We've started doing family movie nights where we're kind of it all started as a kind of a physical media thing to have, bunker media, right? In case things ever fall apart. And I was like, you know what? I need to start introducing my girls to something new, to things they haven't seen before. So we sit down, we watch a movie. Guess what? My phone goes away. There's no phone during the movie anymore. I'm like, let's watch movies like it's the 90s again, that kind of thing. But doesn't mean we're stepping away completely. But the other thing was, for anyone who follows me, in the spring, I did something like a 2-month road trip, which was a hell of a fun time. But about 3/4 of the way in, I realized I got 4 years left with my girls. 4 years left. Well, not that they're going anywhere, but they're going to graduate, right? So Charlotte's into volleyball, Alice is into basketball, and that's a day a week priority now too for me. So, life changes a little bit. And yeah, so you have to, if you're looking at things and you're like, you got 7 days in the week, what are you going to fit in? Some things have to go for a while. And I would tell anyone else the same thing. If you're building a business, that's got to be your thing. So like you said, Nicole, certain things come up. And yeah, so for the time being, I got to keep building the money.
Well, you've definitely put together a kid's empire up there in Canada, or rather Becky has, which is why I was really excited when she agreed to work with us on SRF Kids. I'm going to share this. I don't know that this would have ever really happened without somebody taking over what to do with the kids, right? And so at Self-Reliance Festival on Saturday, where they're going to do fire starters. Now, mind you, this is ages 5 to 12. And if you sneak a 4-year-old and she's like, whatever.
That's the
She's
way
like,
to do it.
preferably they know how to bathroom. If they don't, you might need to be close on hand. Fire starters and building a fire. And then they're going to have a lunch break, which is just off with your parents again. And then prepping and cooking over a fire and maintaining a fire for cooking. So Saturday is all about fire. And that really complements one of our demonstrations, which is forging with fire, where a guy's going to come in and build a forge with fire, and then fill it all in before he leaves, so that you can see how to do that without like specialized propane equipment. Day 2, it's a little less about the prepper side and a little bit more about the fall is coming side. So we've got painting pumpkins, water filtration, and then making pemmican and making trail mix. So that's going to be where we had sessions in a smaller tent last time. That's all going to be the kids' tents at this point. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah,
I'm so happy.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was one of those things. It was like, how do you add kids with with the way things are at Self-Reliance Festival? And it seemed like that was a really good thing. So thanks to Becky, that's happening, and it's going to be a good time at Self-Reliance Festival. What are you looking forward to the most, Spags, about going there?
Man, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Seeing you and John is pretty much one of the highlights of my year. You guys have been absolutely two of my favorite people that I have picked up. The fact that Tim's going to be there is now going to make that 3 awesome people that I get to see. I've met some of the coolest people in this particular arena at Self-Reliance Festival. And, I've been to the other events, my own event, and a lot of the people who come now to our event come from SRF. A handful have come from KSL. But it seems like SRF is kind of that really cool hub where a lot of the people get together for that first time and meet. And so I think that's my favorite part, is just the networking with all the people. I tell people this about Midwest, but I feel this way about SRF too. I feel like it's a proving ground. It's a place you can go to meet some of these people in the flesh and see how they truly are. And it lets you know the personalities of these folks and who you want to associate with and that sort of thing. And then when you do that whole "where are you from?" raise your hand, get together, shake hands, and don't be strangers portion of your event, I mean, I don't know how many people now show up to our event because of that. So networking and getting to meet cool people, that's what I always looked forward to at SRF.
Yeah, the Find Your Tribe /connection session, I think, is one of the most popular sessions. And it's very hard to use as a selling tool before it happens, because like people come because they want to see CJ Kilmer from Dangerous History Podcast or Toolman Tim or whoever's speaking, right? And then they get there and they're like, wow, I never thought there were people who lived near me who think like this.
Mm-hmm.
And we can almost always connect people together. And that becomes the thing they want the most every time. So, like explaining that though, as hey, this is why you should grab your ticket and come out on October 5th and 6th. They're like, yeah, I just want to meet Jack Spirko, or I just want to meet whoever,
Mm-hmm.
Joel Riles.
I mean, just to throw it into perspective, just tonight, I just seen a lady named Lucy Bourne in the chat from Ontario, Canada. Never seen her before. Doesn't mean, we just made a connection. Now, that is a long drive, but we are in the same apartment above a meth house. We are both in Canada, and that's really cool. So it's good to see you, Lucy. That's how this stuff happens,
Yep. Spags, how long have you been doing the self-reliance /preparedness stuff?
Oh, personally?
Like, how'd you get started?
I got started in 1997. So whatever that math is, but almost 97 to 2000, almost 30 years, I guess. 28, 27 years, something like that. I got started because my dad was Air Force, and I grew up partially in Europe during the Cold War. And I remember watching fighter jets coming back from the east with smoking tails and holes from bullets. It was not as cold in Berlin as people like to think it was during the Cold War. And I remember my dad having to get woke up at 3 a.m. and put on all his chemical gear, and the security force police would come out there and round everybody up and take them to work for war exercises. And so we grew up just in a house where that was kind of the way things were. And that kind of materialized over time into caring about it from a personal perspective. And then when I left home, one of the first things I did was that private security work, Merc work back in the late 90s. And you do that. You do some hairy stuff like that a few times, and you realize, well, I should probably have some bags of some food, water. A good friend of mine always used to say, there's nothing that $5,000 in a passport can't fix. And so just always having go bags stashed all over Kansas and Missouri at the time, and then even in some other places, it just kind of snowballed from there.
Tim, what got you into it?
That's a good question. I mean, I was 18 in 1999, so Y2K was probably the thing that really started it. I grew up in the evangelical mindset, that the world was going to end at any moment. So yeah. I had an apocalyptic mindset to begin with, but I guess I would trace the roots back to, the mid 2000s when Becky and I first met. We got married. We had 3 kids. We were surviving on about $1,100 a month. And, the old cliche, but we called it surviving, but it was prepping. We very quickly, we got into it and I was like, oh man, this is great. Like I remember when we didn't have any money, but we'd have the toilet paper closet and we'd have the shelf of laundry soap. And, we always said that the lights would stay on and the kids would be fed and the rest didn't matter, and then we started with some chickens and we had some goats, we tried all the things, but really for us, it was about making sure our kids never suffered the best we could and keeping things on hand. And then it became, I guess, a proper obsession. I remember even to go back a little further than that, I remember living on my own before I met Becky. And I asked my grandmother if she'd teach me how to make mustard pickles and strawberry jam. And so I dug into mom and dad's basement. I found a whole bunch of dirty old mason jars, cleaned them up. And I had strawberry jam and mustard pickles. And I figured I was ready to survive the apocalypse, so it starts everywhere for somebody. But for me, that it was pretty cool having a partner in crime with Becky on that, because for us, it was keeping the lights on and keeping the kids fed.
Yeah, Zeg is cracking me up. Most people don't remember me, but they remember Bailey. So,
hello, Zeg.
Hi, Zeg. You're on the live stream. We just called you out personally.
Yep.
That's just the way that goes.
One step
I don't know when
after.
I became a prepper, but I realized I was a prepper when I was listening to the survival podcast for like the first time in 2016. I think I started being a prepper for totally different reasons than other people in the 90s, early 90s, because every time I liked something, I asked myself, like, how does it work? How do you make it from scratch? What if I can't get access to this anymore? I'd need to learn to make it from scratch. So if I really like something, I need to go down to the create it from nothing level, starting with, spaghetti sauce was my first one, which meant I had to learn how to grow the tomatoes and the garlic and put it all together. But that went out into everything, like learning how to sew and do all of those things. And then I became a homesteader. And then when you're homesteading, you're always busy doing something. And then it's nice to listen to things while you're doing things. Probably some of you on this live stream are doing things on your homestead, listening to what we have to say. And Spirko starts talking about prepping in an organized way, like modern survival with categories. And I was like, oh, I'm a prepper. Like, at that time I was shopping once a month because I had everything organized in my pantry. What I wasn't very good at was self-defense, because I had outsourced that to the man in my life. And I was like, it's his job. And that's actually a terrible attitude to have, because who has his back at that point? And then I also wasn't terribly stocked up. I wasn't terribly good with my finances at that time. And it's really helpful when things go horribly wrong in your life to have, a savings account.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one, when we talk about it a lot, there's a lot of people looking around shifty-eyed in the audience going, maybe my finances aren't where I want them exactly right now.
Yep.
But It's definitely doable. It's definitely doable once you decide, okay, I'm going to get this more where I need it to be. And a lot of that starts with mindset, Tim.
It 100%, Nicole. It's funny you talk about that because many moons ago, back when I first started listening to Jack, and I don't know, like 13 or something, I was working from home and we moved out to Alberta and we had dug ourselves into a horrible financial hole. And before things got better, we decided they were going to get better. And we started paying off some of our old debts. It wasn't easy, but we didn't even really know what the snowball method was, but we started taking some of those tiny little debts and paying them off. And it's going to sound funny, but the first thing for us was knowledge, was getting one of those free programs that would look at your credit rating and would see, okay, where did we really F this up? And what do we need to fix? Because some things you thought were a problem weren't, and some things you didn't think were. And as soon as you find them, you're like, okay, so then you got to figure out, okay, what number do I call to fix it up? And, who do I make an offer to and all this stuff. So yeah, it was not easy. Things were tight, but we were starting to pay that off. And that was building the foundation for the things that came after it.
So as inflation has ramped up in the last few years, I've watched some of my friends from, back in the day feel the pinch of inflation on their budget. And the natural reaction to that is fear and discomfort. And it's not fun to talk about out loud with your friends because, like, what if they judge you for needing to talk about how money's getting tight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people do that as a matter of pride. But if you're not a person who does that as a matter of pride, it can be the opposite. It's shameful to admit that, heavy cream going from $2 a quart to $5.39 a quart doesn't hit your budget where it hurts. And they start looking for advice online. And the first advice you see is stop buying the $5 Starbucks coffee. And then they get mad about that. Right. But if you separate it from the coffee and look at what the underlying advice of that is, which is the small decisions you make every day add up to a lot more than you realize, and figure out, assess if you're making small decisions that hurt your budget and keep you from moving out of this place where the pinch of inflation is really getting you. If you take the advice, it does make a big difference rather quickly.
Yes.
And that's where, they'll be fighting it. And I'm like, just don't fight it. Like, I know you don't drink coffee at Starbucks, but I see you smoking those cigarettes or whatever it is. And I know that you really like that thing, but maybe you could do half that thing this month.
Does some of that come back on? I don't know how many times I've quoted this fella, but the old medium is the message, and it has a lot to do with how we present the message. And if we, I'm just going to be honest, if you come across as an absolute dick and you're like, yeah, just stop your $5 latte. Well, okay, great. But you know what? Something I've learned in the daycare in the last little while is everybody we've hired is Gen Z. And you want to see a difference between Gen Z's idea of the workplace and Gen X's. And guess what? If I want to be an effective leader, I got to go back to school and learn how to talk to them in a way, communicate in a way with them that is effective. Because if I don't, what am I doing? I'm teaching the old ways to new folks who need to lead new folks. And if I interpret it wrong, use the wrong language, they're not going to get it. So again, maybe, and I know some people love that whole idea of, stop your lattes. Well, the underlying principle's there, but why don't we look at it and say, okay, well, what exactly can we do? You hear it all the time. I can't afford to buy a house. Well, the average house in downtown Toronto is $850,000. Well, I get it. I guess part of my presentation is going to be on how can you afford property in Tennessee when you can't afford property in Tennessee, right? So, a lot of people could buy a really cheap home in Provost, Alberta, where I live, for $35,000 or $40,000 and fix it up. Now, not everybody's going to want to do that, but there's a lot of options. And I guess, it's a roundabout way to say maybe sometimes we present it in our sensibilities instead of how some other folks need to hear it.
Yeah. And it's those little decisions you make every day can be really tied into your identity, by which I mean, like I enjoy me some bourbon, right? I used to have cocktails every single day, and it was part of my identity, and I was not functional at an event without a drink in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody was like, well, maybe you should stop drinking and see what that's like. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't have a problem. Like, whatever, all of those things. And then when Tactical quit drinking, out of solidarity and to make it easy for him, I did. I was just like, I'm just not, like, for as long as you need me to, I will not drink in front of you. And I see him every day here. So, I might drink when I went out, but I didn't, that like 6 months, didn't drink anything, and was out in situations with him at bars having fun. And I realized something as part of that is I had forgotten how to have fun without alcohol involved.
Yep.
And now I have fun without alcohol involved. But it was, it was like, oh. So if you had told me to reduce my budgetary spending at that time, before I had that realization that, not drinking was going to be a big part of it, because it's a small decision, I would have been like, nah, that's BS, man. I can still have my beer. So I get it.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I didn't tell a whole lot of people this, but Thursday at Midwest was the first drink I had had in 60 days. I realized I was in the same boat what you just described. I was always with a drink in hand at a certain time of day. You could count on it. Every live, I had a whiskey or a scotch or a beer. And I saved ridiculous amounts of money for those 2 months. And now I have trained myself to not need it every day. I've trained myself not to rely on it for stress management or cool factor or whatever the case is, because none of those things actually are true. We just perceive it as true. But to Tim's point, if someone had told me 4 months ago that I needed to stop drinking as much, or a year ago, I'd have told him to get bent. This is my life. I do what I want, but, and I think that to Tim's point, even more, when you brought up the coffee, I think that you're right. I think we are used to talking to our own generation, and I'm guilty of that. I'm very, very guilty of that. So I have found that maybe suggesting it as a choice instead of saying, well, you need to do this. Well, okay, what are the things you don't need to survive every day? And you go down and you'll find and you can lead the question in a way where they give you the answer. And once they give you the answer, then it's them figuring it out. And then you say, okay, look, we all have our vice. You like your Starbucks. Keep your Starbucks. Maybe reduce your internet plan down to the second tier, because you don't have to live stream, or you don't have to do online gaming every night. Maybe you can play your live games on Monday and Tuesday when no one else is, so that you're not worrying about bandwidth. And then on Friday, Saturday, you drop it down a bit. Or maybe you go get your clothes at, Goodwill. I buy clothes at Goodwill. I don't care. I have no problem saying that. Yeah, that's a $15 pair of jeans that would have cost you $100. And then you teach them to turn that into a status thing of, okay, yeah, cool. And then they start to realize that they're like, oh yeah, okay, I don't need $100 pair of jeans. I don't need the latest iPhone. I can get a phone that's a year old. I don't need the highest. And then when they start building the algorithm themselves, then you don't seem so preachy, and you actually kind of get through a little bit more that way.
And what happens with that algorithm over time is you start assessing the long-term payoff for the decision you're making.
Yep.
And sometimes, especially as your income side of the equation has gone up, you're like, yeah, that $250 bottle of booze is something I want to buy, and I'm going to share it with my friends and enjoy it. It's fine.
Yep. And that's my one thing that I'm allowing myself this time.
Like, the long-term benefit is there. But if you're buying a $250 bottle of booze and your income is not ready for that, then that's where you end up in that cycle. And Tim knows all about that cycle. We know his backstory. So
yep.
I'm not accusing you of buying $200 bottles of booze during that time, because you probably weren't. But
no, but I did. Yeah, no. Oh.
Okay. Hey,
you're on mute, Spags.
How many of these did you give away, Spags?
Oh, I think I gave away about 7 to 8 of them. 7 to 8 of them. I still have a few.
Who in the live stream chatter knows what this is all about? These little tokens that you can get. This one says Midwest Preparedness Project. I've got one that says Self-Reliance Festival. There's one that says Midwest Preparedness. I'm sorry, it says Kentucky Sustainable Living. Apparently, I have a broken record in my voice today. Hit the scratch in the record, so to speak.
What are they, Tim?
For those of you who are Gen X or Gen Z, a record is an old antique device that we used to use to convey musical sound that you put on this machine that spun, and you put a needle on it and it amplified the sound.
If you look right over my left shoulder right there, there's a turntable right there in case anybody wants to see what one looks like. It's awfully dark in here, but yeah.
Oh, challenge coins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if you collect one of these tokens from all 3 of the Great American Preparedness Tour festivals this year, we're going to have a Christmas time giveaway that you have earned by getting them. And the only way you can get these is going up to key people at these events who have them. So you have to know about it to get them.
Yes, it's a secret society for
It's
preppers.
a secret society. And so at the Self-Reliance Festival, you can get the Self-Reliance Festival one. At Kentucky Sustainable Living, you can get the Kentucky one. At Midwest Preparedness, you could have gotten the Midwest Preparedness. So now if you want to buy this from me, because you know I have one, like we can have bids on that if you want the prize. And the prize is this engraved Mara knife that has the Great American Preparedness. I don't know if you can kind of see it engraved on there.
Gorgeous.
So just saying.
I just wanted to touch on something that everybody seems to be talking about in the comments for a moment. We were talking about saving money and that sort of thing. And they're talking about the Habitat for Humanity Restore. So to tie it back into what I'm going to speak at the event, we have a fairly nice sized cabin in just outside of Camden for our off-grid property. And we furnished almost the entire thing from the Habitat for Humanity Restore and a bunch of thrift shops in Jackson, Tennessee. So if you haven't checked them out, I mean, we paid, I was like 10 cents a square foot for vinyl flooring to go down. We bought a couch. We bought, everything, anything you could want. And, you know, you can't be picky, but if you want to check a bunch of times, it's just like a thrift store, but it's more geared toward building supplies. And I love the place.
Yeah, the Restore is great. I had a house in Portland, Oregon that was built in 1900, which came to a sad end recently. But it was a beautiful house, and I was restoring it. And you would find these old trims that were ruined and need to find another piece of that matching trim. Well, people who were ripping that stuff out and putting other stuff in would donate it to Habitat, and then you could go there and find your matching trim for like $2 or whatever. It was great. The end to the story is somebody bought that house recently, and they put in on a city lot, which already had a house, 1,600 square foot home on it, in the yard. Like not next door to it, in the yard, in the backyard, and in the side yard, 4 additional apartment unit tower things. Like there is maybe 3.5 or 4 feet of an alley you can walk between that house now, all the way around it, and what's built up next to it. And I don't even understand how you move furniture down those alleys into those places. Like there's the one in the middle is totally boxed in. It's like, okay. So
it's all like
somebody sent me a picture of that. I was like, I like my memories of my fig tree in my garden. Shut it.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of zoning regulations at all, but I'm just kind of wondering how you even get something like that approved.
It was zoned because it was zoned for that. Because they want density in Portland, Oregon.
Right. Fair enough. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. If my house had burned down, I would not have been allowed to rebuild a single family dwelling. Yeah. Even when I lived there, like it was R2 or R3 when I left. So that's now R5.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense then, I guess. I'm still, anyway, whatever.
Yeah. So somebody bought that house for $700,000 and then built those units on it. And a local is estimating each one of those will go for about $500,000.
Oh, wow. I can't imagine paying that much money to live on top of other people.
Yeah.
I would pay that much money to not live on top of other people.
Yeah, I mean, for that kind of money, I better get an island with a helipad already poured and a dock.
Underground bunker, brother. Underground bunker. Don't forget that. Yeah.
And the good internet so I can play video games on Tuesday damn night.
And I'd just like to point out, Chicken Hawk says zoning sucks 99.9% of the time. Yeah, here's what zoning does. It puts control of decisions over property that people own into the hands of NIMBYs or into the hands of Karens who then think they can tell you what to build on your property.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it under the guise of preserving farmland. That's how they start. It's like, we need denser cities to preserve farmland. And what they do is they push up the price of everything so that the farmers can no longer afford to stay on their land because property taxes go up with that. And then you have less farmland, or you have the situation where farms, the small family farms, go away and you have the big commercial farms. So it just ruins everything.
Sounds like Agenda 2030 to me, just by
it was Agenda 2020 when I lived in Oregon. Yeah. But it worked really well there. If you look at that, like a lot of the problems in that state come from the whole land use zoning, smart growth plan that they put in place. Yeah.
It's just a land grab by whoever you want to name them to be. That's all it is. It's a way to control it.
Yeah.
I do believe that's from Back to the Future. In case anybody's wondering. Did you say you are my density?
Well, here's a good question about Self-Reliance Festival, Spags. Hey, are you going to be there, and do you have a special role this time?
Yes, I will be there. I am coming in Friday night, and I am coming in with the crew from Midwest, as well as a couple of our wives are going to come with us. My wife's coming for the first time. She'll be excited to see Nicole. She's the one who went and picked Nicole up from the airport the one time Nicole flew in to see us, and they had a good time on the way back, apparently. So she's excited for that. But I will be your master of ceremonies live from the stage, and I will channel all of the power of the egotistical men into that moment just to shine just for you.
Yeah, he's going to be master of ceremonies. Tim is going to help with the MC work as well, and it's going to be a really fun time. Plus, we get the whole crew from Midwest Preparedness, and I have to say that without y'all, the kids program also wouldn't be happening.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I'm actually so glad that you guys are doing that. My very first one when I was there, oh God, what was it, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and John pulled me in to do an interview, and he asked what are some of the things you would improve, and I said, well, the first thing was you have to find a way to involve kids, because right now half the homestead has to stay home to watch kids while the other half comes here, and you got to get to the point you're engaging the whole family, because homesteading is a family thing, prepping is a family thing, and whatever the family dynamic is, if you're going to prep or homestead, that's what you have. And so it makes perfect sense to me to get the future generation built up so that we're not having a conversation 30 years from now on some weird podcast of the future where they're like, have you noticed the work ethic of the Gen 22ers is nothing like it, and I can't even talk to them the same way? Well, if we start training them in the way they're supposed to go, maybe those generational differences will kind of start to come down a bit, because I don't think you had those kind of communication problems from 1860 to 1870. It wasn't until the huge post-nuclear age where everything is shot, and every 10 years you had technology that was completely outdating the last. Before that, we had a much more agrarian society, and so we can return to at least part of that mentality by bringing our kids and our wives and our husbands to these things.
Right. And just know that on the SOE compound, there are guard dogs that will be wherever John puts his guard dogs. Usually he has them in cages. Mm-hmm. And if your kid opens the gates to go up to those cages, you can get hurt. So like the campground is on the other side of the property. Definitely want to be supervised with your children there. But yeah, and then also make sure they don't just walk up to random animals and touch them, because I know, like, out in the world, people pet on dogs. You don't pet on John's guard dogs, because they are not, unless you are John or Amanda,
right?
Or Cody. I think Cody can do that too, but that's it. That's what they're trained to do.
I do think younger generations are getting better at that, because now everybody has a service animal, and you walk through Walmart and people have service parakeets and service chipmunks and whatever, and everyone now knows to ask, can I touch it? Because if you don't, man, that old dude in the scooter getting all the frozen fish sticks is going to yell at you for touching his salamander. Just saying.
Yeah. So one of the
salamander.
things that's like a little like, so Midwest preparedness, one of the things I love about it is that like you're camping with all your buddies and there's programming going on and there's vendors and all this cool stuff. Ours started more as a demonstrations and speaking from the stage, and then the camping kind of like got added in later. Right. So we're a little bit different in approach. So I think we have more demonstrations than you. You general.
Do much more.
Yeah. And guys, this is not a judgment or a better or worse. They're just different. Like I want to get out to your spring one again next year.
You should.
I'm trying to figure out how the dates work. But because I had like the best time there.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
It is.
But I have fun at yours too.
Yeah.
So you're right. We all formed originally for probably slightly different ideas. And as we grew and met each other, we adopted from everybody different things. It just shows that the community works.
Yeah. So I just want to share with folks the demonstration schedule. And these schedules are printable, downloadable from selfreliancefestival.com on the agenda page. I'll probably do a highlight on the homepage eventually for this, but we're still like, it's possible something could move to a different time right now, just depending on what happens. But we have all day demonstrations. We have distilling for fuel with Jason and forging with fire. And there's actually a spinning demonstration that I don't see there that I probably didn't communicate with the designer. So we have spinning a fiber spinner coming out, which was cool. Actually, Toolman Tim, you introduced me to this person.
Did I really? Do
you remember doing that?
Oh, oh my goodness. Jay Ferguson, is she coming?
Yeah.
Really? From South? Oh my, I had no idea she was. Yeah, cool? I'm excited.
Yeah.
See, guys, yeah, that's awesome. So, for anybody who wants to know how much I love Self-Reliance Festival, this will be the first time in 3 years that I haven't gone to another event in the forest of North Carolina around the same time, because I had to pick one event. I'm literally flying in for this event, so I'm that excited. So that tells you, put your money where your mouth is. But this event is the cat's ass, I'll tell you. So that's awesome. I didn't know that Jordan was coming.
Yeah, so Jordan's coming, and I think I got an email the other day that I haven't answered yet. So if you're hearing this, Jordan, I will answer that. I've been trying to keep most of the emails going to event manager at selfreliancefestival.com. So if they go into my other inbox, sometimes they get like pushed down, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got to go catch up on that, because I'm not as cool as Tim, and I'm not at email zero all the time.
And I still am.
Yeah, good for you. One day I'm gonna actually commit to that and do it. But we've got a butter making demonstration, rabbit processing, a prepper PC, which is, I have one around here somewhere. Where did I put my PC? Oh, it's over here.
I can't wait to see
it comes in a EMP proof bag. It's not on the internet, and it actually has AI search tools with information in there. So it's really fun to use it as a research tool when I'm out and about. I'm about to start doing more documentation, because my documentation is not as in order as it needs to be. And I'm like, but I got to write account numbers for my banks down.
Nice.
That never touches the internet. So that's actually what I was like, man, I can do a whole series on that. We got DIY solar, a wild edible walk, how to properly plant a tree with Tim Riley, a body armor, defense dog demonstrations, how to find land. That's one that everybody wants to do. How to tap a tree. You ever want to do maple syrup? So, and we got a salve making. Amanda Willis is doing salves on Saturday. Medicinal vinegars. Grumpy Acres is going to be in the house. So it's going to be really fun. Definitely check out all those demos. Occasionally, usually between now and SRF, somebody's like, I could demonstrate this. And if we can fit you in, we will. Because it's just fun to wander around to all the demonstrations, I think, and just see what everybody's got going on.
I'm cool excited graphics. That I'm going to get a second hug from Michael. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Spags.
I was just going to say, those are cool graphics.
Yeah.
They're awesome. Yeah.
We changed the look of the agenda a little bit this time. We used to try to fit everything into one agenda, and everybody's like, I can't find anything. And I'm like, we're having agendas for unique business units. I'm going to call them business units or whatever you want to call them. So Speaking of shalom, there is a Torah tent in Vendor Row where prayer will happen. And I haven't talked to Dawn yet about if they're going to be doing something all day Saturday or if they're just not going to be there Saturday, but that's happening as well. I think in the tent right next to Chuck Peoples. So that was something. So here's the thing. People come up to me and they're like, you know what we'd like, Nicole? We'd like a way to network singles by having speed dating. And then I say, would you like to put that together for the next one? And they say, well, you'll notice we don't have speed dating on the agenda because nobody put it together. But what has happened this time is people who observed the Sabbath on Saturday were really interested in having sort of a way for that to work for them. And so that I don't know that they did this in the background, but one of our vendors was like, we want to just have this place. And I think it's really cool. And a second thing that happened is somebody who's been to some of our smaller events where we do a barter blanket, Survival Punk is doing a barter blanket on Saturday night in the campground.
Nice.
So if you want to bring, and it's so I would love for Midwest Preparedness sometime to do a barter town, because that's a different like thing that you guys do there. If you ever wanted to do like a Midwest Preparedness thing at our thing.
Yeah.
Barter Town's really cool because everybody like pops out with their stuff and it's like an impromptu vendor area sets up. But barter blanket's a little bit different where you have one item and you tell a story about it and you trade for it. So that's going to actually happen this time.
Nice.
So those are some things that just organically are happening at the festival. Other things will happen at the festival that I don't even know are happening.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just people come up with ideas and they do it. We've got people putting together whole encampments in the campground where they share kitchen, like they get their camp stoves and stuff and share kitchen stuff because they're cooking rather than buying from our food vendors, and that's totally fine. And so there's an encampment going up. I do know that.
That's cool.
Pooling, you know, so then you don't have to have 9 camp stoves. You can have like 1 and everybody uses it. And truth be told, guys, it would make somebody's day if you're like, can I heat my stove on your camp stove? I mean, that's what preppers live for.
We all love to show off our gear. I mean, we all need t-shirts that just says weird flex, you know, and just walk around. Oh, yeah, you can check out my water filter, you know.
Anybody have a knife?
Yeah.
You open your thing. You know, it's like you're some New York sleazy watch dealer. And you like open your pocket and all these knives are hanging. I got to knock off more of. Why? Because $5 was too much, or why?
I legit had to ask for a knife during setup at the last one because my neck knife wasn't on.
Yeah.
And it was just like that. It was like 10 knives were drawn. And nobody was worried that they were going to get hurt with the knife.
There it is. You just did it.
I know. Just made a thumbs up on accident. That happens from time to. I guess I could turn that off.
Yeah, but it's kind of fun. It's like an Easter egg. What's Nicole going to make appear on the screen today?
Like, and it's always on accident. Oh wait, it has to be.
You have to do like one of these or something.
Oh yeah, I can do that, but it has to have enough contrast. I don't know that. I don't
really. It'll show up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at you being. Look at you. That's like some Gen Z stuff right there.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
Well, so you know how Gen X does hearts, right?
What's that?
I thought
we used to do it that way. That's the Gen X heart, and then I think millennials did that, and I thought that Gen Z does it a whole nother way where you're like, you what?
I don't know. They use weird words that I don't understand.
It's so true. It's so true.
It's changing by the day.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing when you don't have a knife. You know, my first time camping at a prepper event, I brought my tent. I was like, man, I haven't slept in a tent in a long time. So I pitched my tent at home before I went so I wouldn't look like a total beast.
Yep.
And so I pitched my tent. And the one thing I've never really had to do is stake down the tent because there's always, where I camped, there were always trees to tie it to.
Yeah.
So I like had to admit I didn't know how to use the little slidey things on my tent to a passing dude. I was like, this is embarrassing, but I don't know how to do this, and I need to snake down the tent. And I will say, my tent did not blow away that year, and other people's tent did. So
good for you.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Gen Z words totally slap. Yeah, I've heard people say that. And I'm not even that curmudgeon yet. I'm not even to that age where I'm like, that's not slang. In my age, we had proper slang, like radical and stuff. But I just don't know what it means. They say words and like bussin'. Like, what is that? I mean, if that means cool, bussin', I can say it, but at least our slang made sense. Like it meant something cool or good. Everything meant cool or good. Now their slang refers to body parts and like Kama Sutra positions. And I'm like, why? You're 4. What are you talking about?
I gotta check out the book to see what that position even is.
Yeah, right. Now I'm getting weird ads on the side on Facebook based on my Google searches. And my wife's asking, what's this about?
It has been brought to my attention that me asking prepper guys for help is way less embarrassing than a dude doing it. So I understand. That's why you bring your wife and then you just like disappear. Right?
Hey, you know, last spring I went to another event in North Carolina, and there was the dude next to me. We'd actually been at Kentucky first and then at North Carolina later on. He had a brand new tent, didn't have a sweet clue how to set it up. He's like, hey, does anybody want to give me a hand putting this together? It was like 12 people jumped on him. We're like, here we are, had his tent put up in like 10 minutes. You know, it was awesome. People, don't be scared to ask. I mean, I guess that's one thing we talk about, man. You know, the same things get brought up every time we do these lives about SRF. But if you want to talk to somebody when you're out there, if you want to learn something, the only excuse for not learning or not talking to somebody is not doing it. So when you're at these events, I'm absolutely, if you want to talk to somebody, if you want to learn something, there'll be somebody there who will teach you. Just ask.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Okay.
Most of us are not, we're very easy to approach and ask things. It's just we're a bunch of introverts. So it's just making that first step.
Yeah.
You know, I'll probably forget that I met you, and not because, you know, I'm a big deal, but because I have a horrible memory. So if I act like I haven't, just come up and say, hey, we met here and give me your name. I'm like, yeah. And then I'll remember, but I'm just so bad with, you meet so many people and it's like, I do my damnedest. That's why I bring Becky with me. Cause she's like, yeah, you know who this is. I'm like, yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Here's a question. What are some tips from Sisk? I don't know. Maybe Sisk. What are some tips for SRF first time? I've been to an LFTN spring workshop.
Ooh.
What tips would you guys have?
If you're going to ask Don Willis a point blank question, be prepared for a point blank answer and have your thick skin available.
If you haven't gone to something like this before, don't kick yourself in the butt if you don't get to every presentation.
Yeah.
Build in or allow for as much time as you can to shoot the breeze with as many people as you can, because at least for me, the big benefit of these events is the networking that you get to do. So build in some time to just chat, and don't be a slave to the schedule while you're there.
100% true. The relationships you make with the people there are more important than seeing somebody speak.
Yep.
Even though we're there too. Right. Rachel says it's a really different feeling to be at an event full of helpers, and I call them doers. They're people who do stuff, and that's something that's important. If you're somebody who doesn't like to initiate conversation, think of a few questions you can just ask anybody. Like, why did you come here? What are you most excited to see? And having 3 or 4 of those questions will get things going, because the opportunity you miss by not speaking to people is actually the thing. And I'm an introvert. Like, I have to make myself go into rooms full of people, and I like I'm at the door, I'm walking in, and what's going on in my head is like, okay, go ask questions, Nicole. Like, don't be a wallflower. And then I go in and I go out of my comfort zone and I start talking to people, and pretty soon, like, you get to know people. And now it's not a room full of strangers anymore.
Right. And it only takes one to break the ice. Once that happens, it just becomes a waterfall, and all of a sudden everyone starts talking. And then any anxiety you felt being the first melts away when you realize you weren't the last.
I would say something else regarding SRF is it's a very short event. You know, it's not quite, I mean, it's 2 days, but the second day ends fast. So make the most of your time. If you've never gone before, and if you're camping, great. But if you're not camping, but you're going back to a hotel, realize that there's this whole place where everybody camps out back at the compound where you can just chill with folks for a long time afterwards, because the events kind of end, around supper time. Things wind down a bit, but there's a ton of folks just looking to carry on as late as you want to go. And I don't think I really discovered how cool of a place that camp area was until this very last event. I had no idea that it was this whole little, temporary community.
Yeah.
I have missed that both times I've been to Midwest Preparedness because I've been so tired at night. I'm like, well, sunset, I'm out. So they're like just ramping out the fire there, and they have so much fun around the fire. Same things happened at SRF. Like, there's going to be an open mic on Saturday night, so there'll be some people doing whatever from the stage. And CJ's either bringing his guitar or we have one for him to use, and he's a pretty good guitar player. So that's over there. The campfire is over there if you don't want to be involved with that. So what happens is people go home, and people also spread out to different places. And what's really fun is to walk from place to place to place and just see what's going on at the different stations and see who's hanging out and what they're up to. Yeah, I think that's super fun.
Another tip before I forget, go inside at SOE. Everybody, lots of people will spend their entire event there and not realize that there's more vendors inside, because it's like there's a door that's shut to keep the air conditioning in, but there's a sign that says, come on in and look around, go in, if you want to buy SOE gear, get there early on the first day and buy it then. Yeah. And then go inside and see all the vendors inside as well, because it's very easy to not realize they're there, even though
it might be a little easier to realize they're there this time. We will see.
Good.
We are doing something about that.
I have one more tip to let everybody know, and this is where the MC and me is going to come out. Do not forget that there will be prizes available that will be given away both Saturday and Sunday, and you will need to see me or the people at the, I believe, the reception tent to get your tickets. I will come through routinely selling tickets, and I will hawk them up until the last minute each day. So make sure you purchase tickets at this, even if it's just a couple of them. All those proceeds go back to helping these events continue to upkeep with the cost of putting this stuff on, which becomes pretty big.
Yeah, and half the proceeds of that go to Refuge Medical this time. So we raise money, one for Dark Horse Lodge and one for Refuge Medical, and this is the Refuge Medical one. I usually do Dark Horse in the fall because Veterans Day is in November, but Bear's going to be there, Bear Good. Independent, and I figured we should just raise money for you this time. So
it's a noble cause.
Yeah, we've got some pretty cool prizes too. So those will start rolling out. You'll start seeing them in the next couple weeks.
I'll have to check. I might have one more Spags bag I can use for a prize. There was only so many I was going to be allowed to use for prizes. But
will they be for sale? That's the other question we have from the live stream.
I don't know. I don't want to take away from the vendors who are paying to be there, so probably not. I don't think that's fair. I will tell you this. Grumpy Acres will be there, and they sell them. So if Grumpy has any bags left, which I don't know if they do or not, they can sell them because I think that they're a vendor there. And then if you're in the Kansas City area, I think Riverside Survival Supply is now going to start carrying the last few I have left.
That's very cool. What's a Spags bag?
Well, how much time do you have, and what's this show rated? Spags bag was years ago when I ran the big expos here in Kansas with my buddies, Pete, Allen, and Bridget, and I used to run the shows. I created this little $25 bag, and I had a bunch of stuff. And back then it was rudimentary, some Band-Aids, some itch cream, a little knife, a solar blanket, all that stuff. And it was designed to be thrown into your car and forgotten about, but it would always be there if you need it. So a year or so ago, I created the Mark III, which is the third iteration of the Spags bag. And this one was much better. It was a full backpack. It had a camelback built into it. And the whole thing only weighs 4.7 pounds, I think. It's the perfect everyday carry kit to throw in your car for your kids or for elderly folks or for maybe your wife who's not as big framed as you, who can't carry a 50-pound combat bag, and mine had two things that no other bag on the market has, which one was the Randy McNally Pocket Atlas to the entire North American continent. So all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Canada, and Mexico. analog, EMP proof. And then the other thing I put in my Spags bag was a actual Brockage lockpick kit in case you forgot your keys, or the EMP went off and you have to get into someone else's house to get a can of soup. I don't know what you might need lockpicks for. I'm sure your imagination can play with that one all you want, but that's what a Spags bag is. I will see if I can at least get one more and bring it in as a prize, and we can give one away. And like I said, Grumpy might have a few that they can sell. I'll double check with them to see if they plan to have some.
Cool. All right. Well, we're kind of coming on the hour here, the 1 hour mark. So we probably should wrap up. So let's just go once around the horn. Let's start with you, Toolman Tim.
Yeah, I'm Toolman Tim. You can find me on YouTube at Toolman Tim's Workshop. You'll see 2 review videos weekly over there on, it has a bent toward backup, power, generators, preparedness, that sort of thing. I got a huge backlog of about 460 episodes of the Workshop Radio. We're in a hiatus right now because we're busy making money, but we'll be back at it before too long. But you'll also be able to see me, in my only appearance in the United States until 2025 at SRF in Camden, Tennessee. So can't wait to see everybody.
Spags, what do you got to say?
Get out of your comfort zone, get off your ass, get to the show. That's my Gen X side talking to you. And now for the gentler, kinder side of Spags, you will get to meet amazing people. You will realize that your comfort zone was probably not needed when you realize how nice most of these angry looking bearded dudes with guns and their, pink and blue haired, pierced up, tattooed wives are. They're awesome people. It's the roughnecks of the prepping world. And it's by far my second favorite event to my own first. And that's a very, very close tie, quite honestly. So come see us all. You're going to have a good time. I promise. And Tim,
okay, guys,
I'm going to get on the bid for 2025.
Yes. All right. And you heard it from these 2 first. If you want to grab tickets and you haven't yet, it's October 5th and 6th in Camden, Tennessee. selfreliancefestival.com. On-site camping is included. It's tent camping on site. If you have like a van or something, there's a parking lot at the entrance of the event where we usually put everybody who has those sorts of things near each other. Mm-hmm. And there are also really great campgrounds nearby and Airbnbs and some hotels that are probably already full, but it's super fun time. And I can't wait to see everybody there. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.